Okay, so I was asked if I could talk about the third eye, or the Ajna chakra. And so I wanted to create a video about this. So first of all, what is the third eye? It's an energetic center in the body. And the easiest way to start to think about it is it's located between the eyebrows. But that's not the actual center of it. The actual center of it is in the center of the head. And then it radiates out forwards through the point between the eyebrows, and it radiates out backwards out of the back of the head. And it doesn't necessarily stay there. As the subtle nervous system is purified, as a system of energy channels and chakras in the body is purified, the central channel, or Sushumna Nadi, actually straightens, and as it straightens, the location of the third eye on the front of the body actually moves up towards the crown. So where the third eye is for any particular person is going to depend on their state of purification or inner purification. The point on the back of the head doesn't change, that always radiates out backwards. So a point of light, the very center of the head, radiating forwards, radiating backwards. When this chakra is purifying, it can be felt, you can experience it, and we can experience different things. One of the most common experiences that people get is flashing lights. There can be flashing white lights or flashing blue lights, yellow lights, green lights, or all together, different colours. It can even be quite disturbing. Someone could be sitting down to meditate, they're in a dark room, they've got their eyes closed, and the flashing lights can be so bright that it can actually make meditation quite hard. This is one of the symptoms of the opening of the Ajna chakra, of the third eye. There are other symptoms that can come, a sensation of swirling in front of the forehead, or a sensation of the activation of the back of the head, kind of vibration, or again swirling. Can feel ecstatic on the front as it's purifying. And there are other symptoms that come with the purification of this chakra. One of them is the awakening of our subtle vision. So this is a psychic power. And this is the ability to see within our own bodies and the ability to see things in the external world that are normally unseen. So in terms of seeing within our bodies, we start being able to see the energy channels, we start being able to see the chakras, we might be able to see our own physical body, we might be able to see the actual blood vessels, the muscles, the organs, and so on. And in terms of seeing externally, developing the ability to see angels, for example, or to see the spirits of people who have died, to see nature spirits, sort of balls of white light that float around and interact with humans. And there are some negative entities, things that are not particularly kind or pleasant that exist in the astral realms. We can develop the ability to see those. So many beautiful things. Seeing angels, seeing ascended masters is a very, very beautiful experience. And then some things that are not so pleasant to see. So this is the psychic power of clairvoyance that often comes with the activation of the Ajna chakra. And part of that inner seeing, part of the development of being able to see things that are normally unseen, is the ability to see inside the chakra itself. So the chakra is actually located on the central channel, the Sushumna Nadi. The Sushumna Nadi runs from the perineum all the way up the inside of the body, coming to the third eye, coming to the Ajna chakra, and it actually extends out beyond the body in front of the Ajna chakra. And when we develop this inner seeing, we also develop the possibility of seeing inside the chakra itself and seeing forwards within this tube. So the nadi, the channel, is actually a tube. It's hollow on the inside. And when we can see inside it, we can see rings of light, and we can see off into the distance, and oftentimes people see a star, a very beautiful shining star in the distance, in the centre of this tube or tunnel. So when you read about near-death experiences, one of the very common things that people report, if they almost die but don't and actually survive, they'll talk about seeing a light at the end of the tunnel and being drawn towards the light. And they'll often talk in these terms, saying how beautiful the light was and how they wanted to go into the light. So this is an experience of them seeing inside the Sushumna Nadi, inside the central channel, as it's moving forwards away from the forehead into the distance. And so, if we're practicing yoga, we're purifying our subtle body gradually over many years, and we develop the ability to see these things at a certain stage on the path. If someone has a near-death experience, they might have never practiced yoga, they might have never activated their third eye, but simply the process of, if they're entering into that process of dying, that can bring someone into the subtle dimensions of their own being, and they can, for that moment, develop the ability to see these things. So someone might have never experienced clairvoyance in their life, they've never seen anything other than physical things, and then they, say, have a car crash, and in that moment they're taken into the subtle dimensions, and so they can enter this tunnel, see the light. They're seeing a subtle aspect of our own nature, and then they might recover, and then they lose that ability to see into these subtle dimensions. But that's where the entering the tunnel and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel stories come from. Another aspect of the Ajna chakra, or the third eye, which is actually more important than this ability to develop subtle sight, is that it's related to intuition. That the more the Ajna chakra opens, the more intuitive we become. So intuition is a hard thing to describe, but I think the best way of describing it is that when we have to use rational thought, we have to think, this thing happens in order for that thing to happen. We're thinking in steps or stages. Intuition is like being able to leap over all the stages and just know what should be done. You just know where you're going, what you know what you need to do to get there. So we become increasingly intuitive. And that's a very powerful thing to develop, Trying to work everything out using the rational mind is time consuming, it's hard work. The more we can simply know what we need to do and do it, the easier our life becomes. And especially on the spiritual path, the spiritual path is a long path. If we can just know what we need to do and just do it, it makes the whole journey far easier. And so I've mentioned already that the third eye can actually move up the forehead, and the point in the middle of the head stays the same. It's just the direction that the prana is moving forwards from there, and that can move up the forehead. Eventually it'll start to merge with the crown, and so that's another thing that people can experience. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between the third eye and the crown. The crown sort of expands as we're purifying, and the third eye expands, and the two are coming closer and closer. So that's another aspect of the third eye. So it's a very beautiful chakra. It actually has 2 petals. That's not just something that someone made up. If you see a diagram of the Ajna chakra, it'll be a circle, and it'll have a petal on each side. Those petals are real, and you can actually see them as the chakra is opening. You start to see these petals, and you'll see it spinning around with 2 petals. So it's very beautiful. In terms of activation of the third eye, sometimes people say to me, how can I purify my third eye? And I would always say, follow the guidance of an experienced yoga teacher. Find someone who's been through the journey. They've been through the whole process of purifying the subtle nervous system. And then you need to start, at the beginning and progress in the stages. Activating the third eye too soon is not safe. If you activate it too quickly, and especially if you activate it in isolation, just focusing on the third eye, it can actually be quite painful. The purification can start to happen too fast, and you can get like a stabbing pain coming straight through the middle of the forehead there, or it can feel like being electrocuted, which is not any fun at all. The whole purification of the subtle nervous system has to be managed. It has to be managed quite carefully, and it has to be managed in a balanced way. We want to be purifying the whole of the Sushumna Nadi in a balanced way, and that means it'll be an easy and quite beautiful process. In advanced stages of yoga, there are techniques that can be used to purify the third eye directly, but those are advanced yogic techniques. Those aren't things that anyone would begin with.